What's up friends, today we are here with our first ESK8 gear review on the channel. And in this video we're going to be reviewing and rating the Xboard armored shirt. Alright, with this being the first ESK8 gear review on the channel, I'm going to lay out the different categories that we'll use to rate it. And then at the end of the video, I will use those categories again to generate the composite RBEM score. So let's jump right into these categories. The categories that I've got to split up into are as follows. First one is comfort and quality. The next one is impact and slide protection combined together. After that, we've got maneuverability, and then visibility, style, and finally price, which I'm sure you guys are all very interested in. Actually, before we jump into the categories, let's properly identify this garment of clothing. So on the actual Xboard site, it says that it is an armored shirt, but due to the protective nature and the different fabrics that are in here, it's a little bit heavier than a shirt, or even a flannel that you might wear during the summer. So I would say it's a little bit warm for the summertime, but we are moving right into the perfect season to wear this. With that, it brings us perfectly into our first category, which is the combination of comfort and quality. So there's a couple things I'd like to mention here, and the first being how warm it is. Like I said, it is pretty thick, and that is due to the protective nature of the Kevlar and the other layers in here. If I were to compare it to a different type of material, I would say that this is pretty close to wearing a denim jacket, but maybe a little bit more breathable. As I alluded it to denim, it is quite heavy, and part of that's because of the pads that are in the shoulders and on the elbows, but the other part is just fabric. As for the warmth, if I had to give it a rating, I would say that I would probably wear this jacket in weather cooler than 70 to 75 degrees. Any warmer than that or with a lot of sun, and you're probably going to be sweating even if you wear only a tank top underneath. Now, as for the season to wear this in, I would say that it's probably a great fall to winter, early winter, or even an early spring kind of jacket. Xboard has another jacket that you can wear during the winter that's significantly warmer than this, and I think this bridges the gap perfectly between a summer t-shirt and a winter jacket. Overall, the jacket is pretty comfortable, and being my first article of protective clothing, especially for ESK8, I'm not super familiar with how the pads are supposed to feel. I think they feel pretty good overall, but they can be a little bit annoying at times. I think it's just a general protective gear kind of thing. These pads are very similar to the ones that Lazy Rolling has, and they have a nice curvature when you bend your elbow in there. You can definitely feel them, and you can feel them move around a little bit if you try to move them, but they stay in place pretty well, and I would say that you don't really notice them when you're actually riding with your arms down in the stance where you'd be holding your remote. Now, the quality on this jacket is excellent, and I think something really important to mention is the quality of the zippers. You know, sometimes you get a jacket from China or from some company you've never heard of before, and the zippers feel like they're going to come apart the second time you close them up. That is not the case with this one. The zipper is really nice and strong. Even the zippers on the pockets on the inside are good, and I have a lot of faith in them. Additionally, you have all these snaps on the outside, which are really high quality and have a nice satisfying snap to them. Now, I will say I'm not a huge fan of the pockets on the front. I mean, I can't really think of what I would use them for. And I think they add a little bit extra bulk on here that could be probably a little bit cooler. But they look all right, and they're not really taking away from the protection on the jacket. Another thing to mention is all the stitching on here is very high quality. Most of the seams are very straight, and I couldn't find a single piece of loose thread anywhere on here, so that's always a good thing to see. The other part of the comfort is the actual feel on your skin, and I would say it's pretty average, maybe like a 7 out of 10 or so. The mesh in here is not rough, but it's also not very soft. So when you actually look at it, it's a pretty fine mesh, but it's nothing like fleece or a soft kind of jacket material. It feels pretty good after riding for a couple hours, and I don't really have anything to complain about. The next category is protection, which is a combination of both slide and impact protection. For the impact protection, you've got pads in your elbows, on your shoulders, and on your back. However, I do ride with a backpack, so I took that one out. And it's actually pretty easy to do. Each of the pads resides in its own Velcroed pocket, and you can just undo the Velcro and pull them out. They're not going to come out while you're riding or when you fall or anything like that, but it does make it easy to take it out when you want to. According to the Xboard website, these pads are all CE certified, and that doesn't really mean anything to me at all, so I had to look it up. According to motorcyclegear.com, there are a few different varieties of the CE rating. One of those is certified, one of them is tested, and one of them is approved. Each of these has a different level of qualifications. From my reading, it appears that approved is the strongest rating. And Xboard is calling these certified, and they do have the CE mark on here. I'm not sure if you can see that super well, but they are marked as CE, and it says EN1622, which is part of the rating. I'm not going to go into that all right now, but basically they're crash level 1 certified. The only real difference between approved and certified is that the garment has been tested in multiple zones and that they approve the entire garment as a whole. Now, all these pads are certified, but it is kind of a question mark as to if the jacket itself is certified by CE or not. Whether that is or not, I didn't ask Xboard, but who knows? I'm not super worried about it, but I'm glad to know that the pads will give me some good impact protection. Now that we've gone over the impact protection, what do we have for sliding? Well, that's where it gets a little bit more muddy. So this jacket is actually made of 100% cotton on the outside, and then it is lined with a DuPont Kevlar layer, which is rated for 250 GSM. I'm not 100% sure exactly how those ratings work, and I didn't really look it up, but when I compared it to Lazy Rolling and some others, it seems to be competitive with those. So as for the Kevlar, you can definitely feel it in there. It adds some thickness to it and a little bit less maneuverability, but you aren't actually able to feel it against your skin because of the mesh layer inside. Now, I'm not sure exactly what testing was done in the sliding department, but obviously this isn't going to compare to having an actual leather slide vest or anything like that. But I am confident that in a situation where I were to go sliding across the road, the Kevlar would provide a definite extra layer of protection versus just wearing a cotton jacket. One thing that is not a whole lot better than a normal jacket is the maneuverability. Well, it's not a major talking point as something negative. You do have to kind of give it a little bit of a point. So when you put this jacket on, it does kind of make you feel like a boss, and it's got that big oversized feel like a leather jacket. It makes you feel like you're nice and tough. But, you know, I normally wear a medium jacket, and I got a large in this as per suggestion from Xavier, but it is a tad bit oversized. Not too much, but I would say that the sleeves are a little bit longer than I would probably get for a normal jacket. I guess that does help me keep my wrists a little more protected in conjunction with the Xboard gloves, but you know, it's a little bit oversized. I think if I were to have gotten medium, it probably would have been a little bit too small for my liking, but you know, I'm pretty comfortable in it, and I've gone on quite a few rides with it now and not really had a problem. It does make me look a little bit bigger though. I'm not really this big. I'm kind of a skinny guy, so I don't know. I like it. The one thing about having a little bit of an oversized is that sometimes if you're moving around a lot, your pads will shift a little bit around the corner. Fortunately, the Velcro pockets that are in there do hold them mostly in place, but it's something that you notice, and you can feel them hanging off your elbows. The shoulder pads, you really barely even notice that they're there, which is great, and I can tell that they're definitely going to protect me from a side impact. You may notice that there are some parts on this jacket that are super reflective, and that is totally on purpose. As an electric skateboarder or other kind of personal electric vehicle rider, it is absolutely imperative that when we're on the road at night, we stay seen. Because if you're not riding with a light or reflective clothing, you can easily just fade into the darkness and end up getting hit. We definitely don't want that, so the reflective abilities of this jacket are an awesome thing to have at nighttime. Now I'm gonna have to cut over to some B-roll to show you guys this because it's a little bit hard to show with all the different studio lighting I've got on right now. But As you can see in the B-roll, you've got strips that go down the front of your jacket, right along the seams. You got edges at the bottom. You got bands around your wrists and down your sleeves. And you've got features on the back as well that help reflect light from all different kinds of angles. And this is super great. If you take a flash photo of this jacket, you pretty much end up only seeing the flash off of the reflective parts of the jacket. Anyways, I'll show a little bit of footage later of me riding with this at night to show you what they kind of look like with the different kinds of lights reflecting off of it. And the other great thing to mention is that when you've got a backpack on, you still have lots of strips going down your arms and around your wrists and around the bottom of your jacket to let people know that you're there. So even if you choose to wear a non-reflective backpack, you're still covered. The second to last category is style, and I feel like it's kind of a weird thing to talk about when we're talking about protective clothing, because obviously the number one feature of protective clothing should be protecting you. But realistically, it is something that a lot of people will consider. Now, I do really like the blue color of the shirt. It's a nice blue-gray, it doesn't stand out too much, and even though it's not a super light color, the reflective strips will still help you stand out at nighttime. Again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not a huge fan of these pockets, but they do look all right, and they're definitely not completely out of place. I really like how they did the branding on the shirt. It's super subtle, and it's not like a big screaming in your face, oh, this is Xboard, I'm just wearing that to show off the brand. But it looks nice, and it's tastefully integrated into the design. I really like how the zipper looks when it's closed up. I'm not going to close this all the way because I got my mic in here, but it looks really slick. It's more of like a professional look, honestly, than I would even expect. But I do like that it's super well put together. The snaps and the zipper hold it in there really nicely, and you get a really consistent look. Anyways, it looks good overall. It's not super obnoxious, and I think most people would be comfortable wearing this on a normal day-to-day ride. The last category here is price, and it's kind of an important thing to consider because it's really not all that expensive. With a base price of $179, it compares pretty well to the competition. If you use my discount code RBEM, you can knock a little bit off that and bring it down to only $165. Now, $165 for a good piece of protective gear is not really that bad. When you compare to the competition like Beyond Riders and Lazy Rolling, you have a very similar jacket to Beyond Riders with the addition of all the reflective strips and maybe a couple other features. When you compare to Lazy Rolling, you're comparing to a more expensive product, so it's hard to say exactly what the differences are. I think Lazy Rolling might have higher rated crash pads on some of their jackets, but they also have a lot more options. So again, it's a little bit hard to compare. But going back to the actual price, $165 to protect your skin from coming off, I think is a pretty reasonable price. Now, should you get this one or the winter jacket? Well, that's really up to you and how warm it is where you are. I will be reviewing the winter jacket later this year during the actual winter time, so stay tuned for that one and get subscribed so you don't miss it. One last final thought on the price before we go on to the summary. It is important to remember that Lazy Rolling is based in the European region, and the shipping from there to here might not be super great. I've never ordered from there, so I don't know. But with Xboard, you're guaranteed pretty speedy delivery pretty much anywhere in the US. So consider that when you think about who you're going to buy from. Now that we've made it through all of the different categories, here's a little bit of riding video to get you familiar with what it will look like on the street. So, what are my final thoughts on this jacket? Will I keep wearing it? Is it something that'll stay in my wardrobe and come with me on every ride? Yes and no. This is an awesome product, it's comfortable to wear, and it provides a good amount of protection. However, Kevlar just doesn't quite lend itself to being super breathable, and that kind of cuts out a little bit of the year for me. Our summers out here are between 80 and 100 degrees, and it's just way too warm to wear something like this. However, when it's cool in the evening or during this fall or winter time or anything like that, I'll definitely be taking this with me on every ride. Now, I've not had a ton of experience with other armored clothing, so I think this would probably be a problem that's pretty widespread. However, if there are other brands like Lazy Rolling or Beyond Riders that would want to work with me, I would love to review your products and compare it to this high quality piece of clothing. With that, the review portion of this video is now complete. In this next portion, we're going to be going over the RBEM score. So let's jump right into it. As this is our first piece of protective gear in my line of reviews, here are the categories that I will be scoring it on. Next to them, you can see their point values. So let's jump straight into the first category. Our first category is a combination of comfort and quality. This jacket is quite comfortable, and while you're riding, you don't really notice the pads at all. The Kevlar is well insulated from the radar, but it does add a lot of weight to the garment. Comfort receives a 4 out of 5. The quality of this shirt is very high. Most of the stitching on the shirt is pretty much perfect and very even and consistent. The zippers are high quality, the snaps are strong, and the fabric is durable. I see no reason to take points off of the quality section, and it receives a 5 out of 5. The next category is protection, and this shirt has got you covered in both impact and slide protection. For the impact protection, you've got level 1 pads on your elbows, shoulders, and back. These are all CE certified, and I feel pretty comfortable that I would have less impact wearing this shirt than if I were not. Impact protection receives a 5 out of 5. As for slide protection, it gets a little bit muddy. I'm not 100% sure how to feel about this, but with the Kevlar integrated into it, I definitely feel confident that I would be slightly protected from sliding damage. However, I don't know how this compares to actual slide protection clothing, and for that, I'm giving this category a 3 out of 5. Maneuverability is interesting. It's something that's hard to avoid restricting when you implement Kevlar and pads into a jacket. However, I did not have any problems putting on my backpack or moving quickly, and for that, this receives an 8 out of 10 for a mostly maneuverable piece of clothing. The visibility of a piece of clothing is really important when it's being worn by a portable electric vehicle rider, and bar this being completely reflective, I feel like this does an excellent job with strips all around the entire jacket. For that, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. The style is very subjective, but I do quite like how this looks. The color is very interesting, and the branding is tastefully implemented. Not the hugest fan of the pockets, but I really like how this jacket looks overall, and for that, it gets a 4 out of 5. Price is the final category, and while the competition in the ESK8 and portable electric vehicle market is not super fierce, I do feel that the price of $165 after discount is pretty good to stay safe. For this, it receives a 4 out of 5. Bringing together all of these scores, we get a total composite score of 42 out of 50. Now, this is a pretty good score to start off our protective gear line. And as I acquire more protective gear, I'll add it to the list and we'll see how it compares. I hope you guys really enjoyed this first review of our first piece of protective clothing. I've got 2 more reviews on stuff coming up from Xboard in the coming months, and one of those is on the gloves and another is on the other jacket. So, full disclosure, I was sent these items by Xboard to review, but I was not paid for these reviews. So, I am really happy with this product, and I feel super comfortable supporting Xboard, as I feel it is a solid company and I have a pretty good relationship with the owner. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this time, and if you have any comments or suggestions on how to improve these reviews or other categories you'd like to see or things you might want me to test, just leave them in the comments below. Stay safe, keep on riding, and peace out.